The whole Liam Kumar Day effect, not really happening.
Nigel couldn't make it.
Yeah.
I rang up Mendenhall, he said he could make it.
Don't think this whole Phil, credit to the guy, he always manages to do well what he has, but he is a shocking person on that. You guys got a trophy? No.
It was pre-vim.
No, my life from Rashad Mendenhall.
Right, here we go. Cancel. I'm a tag, Jack! I'm a fucking tag!
Forever and always a tank, Phil. Hello and welcome to another episode of the LOC Report. Commissioner Stubbs back again as always. And for at least a little while longer, it's co-host Chris Leach. How's it going, co-host Chris Leach?
I am very well, thank you. Yes, definitely for another little while longer. So we have many weeks of the season to go. I can't think of many weeks I'm not going to be here. So,
yeah, likewise.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, we've had an episode every year. So every week so far. But yeah, we're planning on to continue that as long as we possibly can. We've had power rankings every week so far as well, so it's been a good start from that front. And then some entertaining LOC football, and then we've had Thursday night football the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's exciting all around. Well, I say exciting. The Thursday night football the last 2 weeks have been pretty shocking, to be quite honest. But
as dire as it can. Can I just laugh? Right, who puts in more effort, us on this podcast or Al Michaels on Amazon in a cushy retirement gig?
Al Michaels must be thinking, what have I done?
No. You got this the wrong way around. This guy is the king of everything. He was probably basically hanging up his hat with NBC. And then Amazon comes along, spends all this money for Thursday night football, wants to obviously get a good crew, and obviously on the post game they've got guys like Richard Sherman, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Tony Gonzalez, all great. Get a big name like Al Michaels in there, you think, it's all going to be great. Al Michaels is thinking, I could do one game a week for $12 million a year or whatever, just before I retire. I'm just going to have some fun with it.
He's absolutely trolling everybody that just comes across as well. I've seen some of the highlights of it. Just last week was, you can hear disdain in his voice.
I feel like he probably personally willed the Broncos fans that left at the end of regulation of that game. That's basically where Al Michaels was from about the second quarter. So,
not again, is he thinking? I said, how can I make a game like this exciting? And he just thought, you know what, I can't. I'm
going to tell you that.
Yeah.
And but we've got an exciting pod though, and so we'll get into it, starting with the Week 5 recaps, of course. And our marquee matchup last week was Pakistan versus Bedednators, so here we go. Pakistan took on Bedednators in the Week 5 marquee matchup. Two teams in the ascendancy, you would say, and both of them entering the game 2-2. Only one would obviously leave with a winning record, and that one was Bedednators, who have had an impressive turnaround to the season so far, notching a season high 135 to 88 point victory over Pakistan. Looking down the lineups, Russell Wilson, as we were just saying, did not deliver the goods on that Thursday football game with only 8 points. That's just as well Chris Olave did with 11, Derrick Henry did with 25, Jeff Wilson with 19, Breece Hall with 26, Daniel Carlson, the kicker, with 16, and the Cowboys did with 24. Who says you need a quarterback when you get to 135? On the other side of the board for Pakistan, Justin Herbert only got 16 points. Justin Jefferson, however, got 18. Devontae Adams blew up with 23. Then no other players over 10 points there. So an okay day overall for Pakistan, but obviously far short of Bedednators there. The history of this matchup all time, I believe it is now a level series. Yes, it is. It's 5 and 5 apiece. Just in terms of the picks, we both picked Pat in this game, Chris, so we both got that one absolutely wrong.
We did, 100%, and the boom Bedednators, they're back for more. I mean, keeping them going 2 weeks in a row. Yeah, we went with Pat this week because we thought that some of the big, the name value would come through, and it did come through, but just the supporting cast just fell apart a little bit there. And some disappointing numbers down the bottom end, but let's talk about Ollie for a second, because after that dreadful game on Thursday Night Football last week and the 8 points that Russell Wilson put up, apart from CeeDee Lamb, every other member of that team was absolutely electric. And I have to say, from a fantasy perspective, wow, it's really topsy-turvy board. Because there's quarterback numbers for your defense and there's defense numbers for your quarterback. it doesn't happen that way very often. But the three running backs, they're the engine room of this team. Last week, Henry Wilson and Breece Hall. I mean, wow, what a performance there! So the Jets absolutely ran over the Miami Dolphins last week, and they've established themselves as a running team, run first team. Amazing. The Jets have started doing something productive after about 7 years. There's a lot to like about that. And 135 points is superb. When you consider the fact that on the bench, there's not a lot of depth there, but he still has Travis Etienne who's coming into his own there for the Jags. That's it. It's going to be difficult to know which of the running backs to drop, but I think as bye weeks go, with that, how we're going into that sort of season, it's definitely on the upside. So that's it. Bad news for Pat. 88's not bad, but 135 superb and absolutely one. Not quite a coupon buster, but obviously for us, it was.
Yeah, completely. And I'm quite happy to be proven wrong about Jeff Wilson. I obviously said at the start. Off that pickup, I didn't really see it going too far. He spent a reasonable amount for it, though. It's not to describe the pickup, but with the quarterback Trey Lance getting injured there, and obviously the Niners still being that run-heavy team, and the other rookies that needed to step up getting injured or not doing so, it's obviously enabled him to do what he's done. And it's been quite the turnaround for Bedennez, like you say, for Pakistan. I think it was just an odd week. Obviously everything isn't quite settled on Pakistan at the moment, but it's a decent day all the same. But it's a good day for Bedennez. So they're ahead at 3-2, firmly back in the race. Meanwhile, Pakistan fall back to 2 and 3. Our next game then was Gridiron Gang against UR Gold. Gridiron Gang took on UR Gold here in week 5 as well. Again, both these teams entering this one 2-2, looking to stake claims for their divisions. And Gridiron Gang did win this one 105 to 67 in the end, so they moved forward to 3-2. Meanwhile, UR Gold fall to 2-3. Looking down the lineups, Josh Allen did Josh Allen things with 43 points, as did Travis Kelce. 4 touchdowns with 25 yards. Not often you'll see a stat line like that, but the 27 points, I'll certainly take them. And then Melvin Gordon, 10 points as well, en route to that 105. On the other side of the board for UR Gold, only Dalvin Cook in double digits, I'm afraid, with the 24 points. Quarterback Jared Goff did not have a good day in New England, only getting 6. So, unsurprising that UR Gold finished up with 67 points there. The history of this matchup all time, let's see here, Gridiron Gang is now 6-2 all time against UR Gold. If you'd have told me at the start of the week, or when we were doing the podcast, Chris, if after Thursday Night Football, Melvin Gordon would be the second highest skill position scorer on my team, or ignoring quarterback, the second highest point scorer, I'd said, okay, I've probably lost this one. And then we are.
I think you're dead right. I mean, you can't overlook the fact that Josh Allen is the absolute linchpin of your team. Yeah. I think that every bit of success that you've had, not every bit of success, but the large majority of success you've had this year has come when he has been on it, as he should be against Pittsburgh, because they are trash this year. And you're right, Kelsey's a weird stat line, but that's what he's there for. He's there for red zone targets, he's there for touchdowns, and that's what he's cashing in on this season. And the supporting cast, you're gonna get weeks like this where, especially with guys like Mixon and Robinson. Maybe even more Robinson now he's being sort of phased out of the offense, where you're going to get a lot of volume, granted, especially for Mixon, he's always going to get volume, but if you don't get the touchdowns, then it's not going to look flashy. But if you can get yourself over 100 points no matter what, then great.
Exactly.
And you see guys on your bench, Lazard's there, who is a touchdown target, and also Mr. Invincible himself.
Bulletproof Brian.
Brian Robinson, I mean, man, that is some story. Plus Michael Thomas, who's obviously injured and a bit banged up at the moment. So, you're finding a way to win, leaning on Josh Allen. I mean, there are worse ways to win, I've got to say. I think that on the other side, Ollie would absolutely love a quarterback like that. He's in just quarterback hell. Every quarterback that he seems to play seems to turn to dust. And those skill positions are not great. I mean, obviously, we've seen Jamal Williams have his weeks and Jones have his weeks. Cook bailed him out from having a really embarrassing score this week. Putting up QB numbers, but this team is not going in the right direction, and I think his receivers You look at Pittman, who is in a difficult offense at the moment, and Cook's much the same. Just aren't going anywhere. Plus, the bench doesn't really have anything there of any real value. So, yeah, I'm really trending down your goal. But you know what? That's it. You've got identity. Completely own that identity. You've got to own that identity and then just run with what you've got.
Yeah, no, completely. And I think, Ollie at the moment is kind of seeing what I felt last year, and exactly why I made a point of taking a quarterback higher this year. Was because it was a real struggle for me last year having to stream quarterbacks week in, week out, because you think you're doing something logical, you think you're picking an informed player in a fairly good matchup, and then it all just completely blows up. And okay, a good quarterback score this week. I mean, to be fair to Ollie, the difference in this game was effectively Josh Allen. If you look at the points total, you can boil it down to that. But even if he's having an average quarterback score, he's still having a decent day and has a shot to beat certain teams. But like you say, when you have that element letting you down, it's really hard to overcome. So there you go. We both got the pick 'em right on this one, and I locked myself as well in hilarious fashion, but it came through. So no kiss of death for myself, which is always good when you do something like that.
Absolutely.
We'll go on to our next game then. Here we go. Bare Necessities took on Perfect Dak here in week 5 as well. We imagined this would be a bit of one-way traffic, with Bare Necessities being 3-1 on the season, and Perfect Dak, actually they were Animal Crossing last week, I should say, Ross's team, 0-4. How wrong we were, as Ross's team did actually post the high points on the week at 145, which was quite literally out of nowhere. To Bare Necessities actually still very good 1-2-2, which would be the third highest score on the week. So looking down the lineups, Kirk Cousins got 24 points. He's done an okay job filling in for Dak Prescott on the team. Cooper Kupp got 19, Mark Andrews 15, David Montgomery 14, DK Metcalf 13, Gabe Davis 29 points, featuring a 98-yard touchdown, might I add. And then the Patriots defense getting 23. So only the kicker, who got 8, by the way, it's not bad, under 10 points in this one, en route to that 145. On the other side of the board for Bare Necessities, like I say, a good day. Lamar Jackson didn't have a great day, so that makes the 1-2 even that more impressive, as he only got 17. Leonard Fournette got 26. He turned up in a big way. Austin Eckler 32. He's had a couple of great weeks. And Dameon Pierce breakout continues with his 17. 49ers rounding off with 17 as well. But just, unfortunately for my dad and who he happened to play this week, the history of this matchup all time, my dad is now 8-4 all time after dropping this one to Ross. And you locked this one up for Bare Necessities, Chris, and that definitely went up in flames miraculously. We both picked him, obviously, as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. This was the coupon buster of the week. I mean, we didn't see this one coming at all. And in fairness to us, I mean, we had your dad's team going down for quite a substantial number of points. And yes, they did. 122 is an extremely good total. Yeah. And I've never, when doing these reviews, never been critical of a team that goes over 100 points and loses, because it's very difficult to do that. That's the ultimate number. But when you get over 120 and lose,
that stinks.
It really stinks. Really, really stinks. And you look down there, and maybe the only thing you can say is that the two receivers that you would put money on, that putting up good numbers week in, week out, in Godwin and AJ Brown, obviously didn't this week, and that's kind of what's cost him. Obviously, Lamar's been a bit further back than we expect him to be, but there is no criticism here. So say that injury, I'm going to keep coming back to this, because a lot of people are employing the same tactic this year. That injury with 3 running backs in there has really propelled him to a good score. And it was a good point. Ben came back with this point earlier in the week, where we come up with this playoff position of the highest scoring loser, mainly because Dave had this position a few years ago where he had a great team, couldn't make the playoffs because he had a record of being blown out like this. And that's it. He's definitely on his way to that this year. Now, I do think that he'll come through and get to the playoffs the conventional way. As for Ross, well, you're right. He is completely out of nowhere. We didn't see it coming. There were some stinking matchups, but you know what?
Do you want to hear a stat just before we get into the game? So this is Ross's team. This is Ross's team's points entering this game by week. 77, 99, 83 and 59. Scored more in this week just gone than in the last 2 weeks combined.
That's it. It's a wonderful stat, and you don't see that very often.
Yeah.
You don't see that very often. And here's what you don't see very often. Every single player outside the kicker scored a touchdown. When do you see that?
Not often, yeah.
Very rarely. So this is just a bolt from the blue. I mean, you look at some of these touchdowns, there were some huge touchdowns for Davis and Metcalf, particularly Davis, as you said.
Yeah.
The volume guys were on the case. Cup, Andrews and Montgomery. Even if Cup and Montgomery ended losses and really, not great losses in the end for both clubs.
Mm-hmm.
They were outstanding fantasy wise. Obviously, we know what you're going to get with Andrews in that offense, and Kirk Cousins not playing prime time. Came up with the goods. So 145, great score. But I don't think you're going to see that again this season. I think that every bit of luck came together at once.
Yeah, I agree. This is obviously going to be the top end of probably what they'll do in terms of points by week on the season. But I think there is also an element of maybe, because like I said on the show last week, we exited the draft thinking, Russ hasn't actually ended up with a bad team here again. How does this always happen? Then obviously the first 4 weeks happened and we're like, but I think when you scratch beneath the surface, to be fair to Ross, he's dealt with a lot of injuries before, which he has been quite fortunate in avoiding in seasons past, with David Montgomery missing time, Gabe Davis missing time. Obviously, he lost Javonte Williams for the season a few weeks ago, and Dak Prescott as well in week 1. So all but Prescott and obviously Javonte Williams have come back in this game. You look to the bench, there is absolutely nothing else really. Okay, Goda had a good day, but he would have lost points by starting him over any of the players that did play. So getting healthy is massively important for Ross's team. But yeah, like you say, unlikely to repeat this level of success going forward. But nice to see him get his first win at least and get off the board there and go to 1-4. We'll go on to the next game now then. So here we go. Forge Flies took on Napolitans here in week 5 as well. The 3-1 Forge Flies took on the 2-2 Napolitans, and Forge Flies fresh after, not too fresh, but after losing a game after having a good start, they did win this one 110 to 65. Looking down the lineups, Kyler Murray got 18 points on the day for Forge Flies. Kareem Hunt got 12, Alvin Kamara got 17, Nick Chubb got 25, and then the special teams, Graham Gano got 10, and the Broncos did got 18, so a good day all round. Pretty much en route to that 110. On the other side of the board for Napolitans, Jalen Hurts turned up to play with the 28 points, as did Ramondre Stevenson with Damian Harris getting injured in the game. And then, of course, Bailey Zappi still starting with 18 points, but then no other player over 6 points there. Even T. Higgins putting up a donut where he was barely playing in that game due to his injury. So rough day for Napolitans. They fall to 2-3. Meanwhile, Forge Flies surge ahead to 4-1. And the history of this matchup all time, I think you are now 2-0 against Dave's team. You are indeed, Chris. So you maintain your lead in the Southampton division. The Portsmouth division for another week.
Well, that's good. And I have to say, this was a very enjoyable week for me this week because at long last I could play Alvin Kamara when he was fit and raring to go. I agree it was playing Seattle and, so that doesn't really make much difference this year, but it's good to know that, my number one pick is looking like a number one pick again. And I think that's the best thing I can take from this week. Chubb's looking like a stud. Kareem Hunt's a bit touchdown dependent. And there's a lot more room to go with those receivers, so they both had pretty down weeks. But it's good to know that the rest of the team is pretty good. So he can make up for that. And even kind of in a rough matchup there. I was thinking about dropping in this week for Zach Wilson. Please didn't. Please didn't in the end. Even though the Jets did win massively, but obviously he wasn't much to do with that. It's heartening. 110 points, good comeback score. As for Napolitans, we know that Jalen Hurts is a fantastic fantasy quarterback this year. He rushed to an early lead. Unfortunately, kind of topped out at 25, 27 points within the first bit of the third quarter and never went any further. Mm-hmm. Aside from that, it's a disappointing score. I know Tyreek, as Jalen Waddle was on the other side, affected by the quarterback situation there. Higgins was obviously injured. Christian Kirk was let down by just a generally bad offense of the day for Jacksonville. Najee Harris is let down by a poor offense, and the problem is that these problems aren't going to go away very quickly. But the one good thing that he can say is that Ramondre Stevenson is locked in as the bell cow back, and he looked every bit like that for the Patriots, and they're going to need him with quarterback problems that they've got too. 65 points. It's a bad score, but I think it's representative of where they were that week. Obviously, nothing on the bench either. They could have done any different. So just one of those ones that you just got to clear the slate and crack on. But going forward, I do think they're going to struggle to score because without Hill and Higgins, if they're going to have to rely on Hurts and Stevenson and a supporting cast of a few banged up guys and a few guys with offensive problems, which is never a good place to be right now.
No, yeah, definitely. I think you said in weeks past that Dave's team is a bit of a strange build behind Jalen Hurts. And I think even if they were completely healthy, I don't think any of the lineup decisions they made probably change. Like you say, they really need to get Higgins to get healthy. They really need Tua to come back for Tyreek Hill. He does, sorry. And then there's some other things that I think that they had a pretty okay start because to the season. But a guy like Christian Kirk, where the Jags obviously played really well for 3 weeks and they've kind of come back a bit of 2 weeks. Like you say, Stevenson's a really good pickup for them. But it's the first overall pick, Najee Harris, that's really, really killing Dave at the moment because I think he unquestionably has been the bust of the season so far. And that's not entirely Dave's fault. Obviously, he profiled to get the volume. He's getting a bit less volume with Jalen Warren mixing in a bit more. And also his efficiency is just as poor as it was last year, which again, not entirely surprising on that offense with, not really good quarterback play, not a really great pass game, and then a defense that's basically a sieve as well. It's just a recipe for disaster. It's just how it's turned out. But then you look on the other side of the board for your team, Chris. Nick Chubb, you would probably argue, could be the number one overall pick in fantasy if we were to redraft again today, because we've spoken in weeks previous about how not a lot of the first round picks at the moment haven't really lived up to their potential, not necessarily busted, but just not lived up to potential. But Nick Chubb has been amazing, and he's obviously been a large part of your success so far this season, as you say, with all the other good players you've got there. And like you say, with Jalen Waddle and Colton Sutton, Jalen Waddle just needs Tua back, and Sutton has been producing somehow with that absolute train wreck, which has been Russell Wilson so far. So if they do actually get taken his steps forward, then watch out for your side. So you moved to 4-1, and then Dave moves to 2-3, both extending your respective streaks to 2, and we both picked you to win that game as well. So good on that front too. So we
got one right.
Indeed, yeah, indeed. We'll go on to the next game then. The undefeated Ixan took on the Dream Team here in Week 5. The Dream Team had dropped 2 games in a row, sitting with a 1-3 record. Meanwhile, Ixan winning 4 straight of the season, looking to extend that to 5, and extend to 5 they did. 111-90. Looking down the lineups, Patrick Mahomes had a great day against the Raiders with 38 points. Amari Cooper got 14. Christian McCaffrey got 16, and then the special teams, Justin Tucker with an impressive outing, 16. Are you entertained? And the Ravens D also got 10 as well. On the other side of the board for the Dream Team, not a bad day at the office, but obviously not enough to take out Ixan on the day. Joe Burrow got 19, Stephon Diggs got 16, Mike Williams got 13, and again, good special teams play, Mason Crosby getting 10, Andy Bills D getting 14. That moves Ixan to 5-0. Dream Team falls to 1-4. And the history of this matchup all time, Ixan, typically a team that struggles against the Dream Team, so now 5-10 all time against Viv. And it is very much looking like a Corona Bowl hangover for Viv. The team isn't necessarily terrible, but it's obviously not been a great start to the season.
No, exactly that, and it's been, again, composition has been the thing to look at here. I mean, when you have that team of receivers, they will either go or they will not go. And this week, they did not go, as well as they perhaps should do. I mean, obviously, we see Diggs, who is obviously brilliant, and Mike Williams, who is a bit of a target monster at the moment, going for the numbers that we would expect them to see. 134 receiving yards is absolutely fantastic for Williams.
You do worry for Viv with Williams, though, because obviously he's been playing without Keenan Allen since week 1. So that's definitely a concern for Viv.
That is right, and that's the point here. I think is that when you see Allen come back, those aren't going to be there. But you want Chase to sort of step up into the void, perhaps to see more Jamar Chase-like figures from last year. I know that they're focusing on him a little bit more than they perhaps were yet last year. And DJ Moore and Jerry Jeudy have their own problems, obviously, offensively. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a grind for Viv this year. But we've seen his teams, hit the heights, but it will be a bit like that. It's going to be a roller coaster ride for him. But I think 90 points represent quite a good total. But we've said about Ben's team all year, is that they will get to those kind of points in and around that 90 to 100, and obviously got to 111 this week, and say beat us. And people can't. People's teams can't. They can't reach those heights every week, but his team can, because they've got consistent point scoring options. Mahomes, any team with Mahomes, whether it be in real life or whether it be in fantasy, has always got a chance of winning because he puts up some serious numbers.
Mm-hmm.
You look at those numbers: four TDs and 292 yards. He is absolutely superb. He's obviously got a bit of a motor on with his feet as well, but that is a consistent source of points. And then when you consider the fact that I would say, I'm just going out on a limb here, that Justin Tucker's probably his next highest scoring player.
I think you're probably right, because we've identified before that Ben's team isn't a top heavy world beater. It's just got, like you say, a lot of steady point getters. So let's take a look here. Justin Tucker has 51 points so far this season, so obviously Mahomes is going to be in the lead. They have McCaffrey at 69 and Deebo Samuel at 54, so he is the third highest non-quarterback scorer on the team.
That's pretty insane as a kicker. So, when you've got the ability to score those sort of consistent points with guys who are going to play every week, you're always going to be in with a chance. And then when you consider the fact that Cooper's turned up with points every now and again when he gets TDs, Connor's TD dependent sometimes, and so is Harris. This team really has got everything that you need, and that's why their record is what it is this year. 5-0 out the gate is absolutely superb, and that's not with everyone fit, and that's by no means with a load of guys in good offenses either. You'd like to think that Cooper's going to get better as the season goes on when Deshaun Watson comes back. You'd like to think that Deebo will get better as time goes on as they lean on him, regardless of what QB that they used. And now that Matt Rule's been fired, who knows how they'll use McCaffrey, but you'd like to think they were building offense around him, because they can't get any worse. And yet he's still scoring very, very, very high fantasy points, even in blowout losses like this one from last week. So I'm really high on Ben's team, as the record shows as well, because they just put up numbers. And I think as the bye weeks come in, they won't be that badly affected, provided the fact that they don't have a week where obviously everyone's off, because you're going to have fill-in guys like, even if it's just an Antonio Gibson or a Lockett or a Boo, guys who are going to play. They haven't got nothing. So, I'm looking forward to seeing where this team can go. How long can extend the record for?
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's kind of the other way. I think Eggsand's looking a bit... This was a good week, but it's looking a bit more shaky. I think a pretty good special teams outing obviously makes the day look a bit rosier. That still would have been a good score without that. But when you consider Damian Harris is now going to miss a few weeks and potentially loses the stranglehold on the lead running back role for that team. Again, okay, he didn't score points on this day. James Conner, again, he's a guy that's been quite banged up so far, and someone who I don't think Ixan can probably rely on for too much longer, because he was a guy last year that was great for Ben and was really efficient, but this year he just hasn't been as efficient, not surprisingly, because it's really hard to sustain those rates. And then a guy like you mentioned, Antonio Gibson, like you mentioned with Brian Robinson, who has supplanted him as the lead running back on that team now. And then I think the only kind of reliable guy you see on the bench there, I like Duvernay, but he's again a guy that's been really efficient so far. It's going to be tough to keep that up, and that was a day when Rashad Bateman was injured as well. Lockett there, he's obviously doing well with Gino. He's just tweaked his hamstring yesterday, and that's always a worry with Tyler Lockett. So it's looking shaky. I think, like you said, the foundation pieces are still there for Ixan, but that there's starting to be some cracks that are forming underneath the top. Yeah, so we'll see how it goes. And then, yeah, I mean, you already covered it quite well with Viv's team. Going full wide outs, it's going to have its good and bad days. And unfortunately for Viv, he doesn't really have anything to turn to on the bench, so he's just going to have to deal with it. But like you mentioned, Moore and Judy are dealing with spotty quarterback play. Williams is going to have Allen come back. So they really need Chase to start playing like 2021 Jamar Chase. Otherwise, it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle for Viv's team. We had differing picks, and that I think it was the only game we differed on last week. Despite your love of Ixan, you did pick Viv. And well, you did get it wrong, but I went with Ben, so it's okay. We'll go on to the last game of the week now then. Tom's Tyrants took on Bucking the Trend here with the final game of Week 5. Tom's Tyrants were looking for their first win of the season. Meanwhile, fresh off of their first loss of the season, Bucking the Trend looking to get back on the win bus, and they rode that bus all the way back home with a 93-78 point victory. Carson Wentz was the streamer of the week for Bucking the Trend with 23 points. Saquon Barkley, before Mike's eyes in London, got 17 points. Josh Jacobs erupted for 25, and the Buccaneers got 11 en route to that solid 93-point outing, which was enough to see off Tom's Tyrants 78. Tom Brady got 22, so he had an alright day. Marquise Hollywood Brown got 14, and Brett Mayer got 11 points, but no other skill position over 10 points there. And we're to that 78. So Tom's Tyrants at 0-5, still searching for that first win. Bucking the Trend moved to 4-1, and their history of this matchup all time. Bucking the Trend are now 3-1 against Tom's team all time, and we both picked Mike in this one, so at least we finish it off getting this one right as well.
Oh yes, that's it. That's good. And I have to say, this one was a bit of a strange game because, Mike lent on his pillars. Carson Wentz. It's a bold play, but bearing in mind some of the numbers that he put up recently, but it came up trumps for Mike with 23 points, give or take. But it is get about his running backs, and Saquon Barkley, who he's just bought a Saquon Barkley jersey actually. I said that arrived from the office yesterday.
Why? Wait, he's a Bucs fan. What's going on?
What can I say? He just loves Saquon Barkley. He's bought his jersey. It looked good. What can I say? So yeah, I mean, I've got an Aaron Rodgers jersey. I'm not a Packers fan. I'm just an Aaron Rodgers fan.
Sure, fair enough.
So you could like guys.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, Saquon's there, and Josh Jacobs, who is, Renaissance Player of the Year so far. Definitely written off fantasy wise before this season, I would say. Just a bit of a mid-round flyer, and well,
you say mid-round flyer. It was around 4 pick, and I think I agree. It's kind of weird because the entire fantasy community, and by that I mean mostly the analysts and things, but I guess the general fantasy players as well, had really written off Josh Jacobs because he was okay last year and has been okay. He's been a bit injury prone obviously in his career. But they were kind of saying, he's just going to get the between the 20s work. He's going to get vultured at the goal line by Zamir White, and he's not going to get as much receiving work. And it's kind of odd because he's actually a pretty good runner. He can catch the ball. This Raiders team hasn't been great, but their offense has been okay, and he's been a large part of that. Quiet start to the year, but that was just because there were no touchdowns there, and that's kind of rectifying itself now. So, but a good pick overall by Mike for sure.
Oh, for sure. That's it. And again, not necessarily known that it was going to happen, but I think that again, fortune is what we like here, and fortune is what's happened. It's being leaned on, and we've seen weeks where guys like Clyde and guys like Amon Russell Brown. We see a team bereft of TDs. The one that has scored is Marquise Brown. Marquise Brown's been heavily targeted in Arizona, but there's just not a great deal to like there at the moment. There's a lot of just players in a bit of a funk. But TDs turn every team around, and you like to think that guys like Miles Sanders are good for a vulture touchdown, and Evans is good for a touchdown at some point. So is Dobbins. So I think there's definite room for improvement there. But this isn't the team that he necessarily wanted, especially talking about number 1 picks, with that number 1 pick of Jonathan Taylor, who just hasn't lit it up this year as he did last year. But hey, it took a little while for Jonathan Taylor to ignite last year. as Dave Henderson will tell you.
Yep.
So hopefully the second half of the season will be just that, and it helps him to have a bit of a better time of it.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we both piped Mike in this one. So a mixed result in the week, but overall in Pick'em, I'm now 30-25. You are 25-17, Chris. And locks wise, I'm 4-6, and you're 5-3. So I think overall it's still not that bad. We will go on to the league news now. And for the news this week, we start off with key injuries, one of which unfortunately involved your team, Chris. Rashad Penny broke his leg, unfortunately, in the game against New Orleans, and he will miss the rest of the season. So obviously not a guy you were routinely relying on, but he was obviously a large part of your overall roster, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I see. He was definitely the reserve running back, and you know what? I played him in one game, and he went for 27 points.
Yeah.
That was the this year's contribution. So fair play, he's done it. But I'm sad that he's got yet another injury, and obviously he's out of contract at the end of the year as well. So who knows where he'll end up next year? But speedy recovery to that guy, because you know he deserves better.
Yeah,
he definitely deserves better.
Definitely, he was averaging over 6 yards a carry again, which is what he's basically done his entire career. As you say, it's just been health that's been the issue for him. So yeah, as you say, wish him a speedy recovery. And then our other key injury of the week, we did mention it when we did the game. Damian Harris for Ixan. He had that hamstring injury. Probably going to miss multiple weeks. He's obviously a guy that typically, again, is a bit injury prone. And then, you do wonder with him how much work will then he return to with Ramondre Stevenson.
Not where I went, but
it's okay.
You're right. Ramondre Stevenson is a big loss. David Harris is a big loss, and Ramondre Stevenson's ascendance into that offense does put a hole in him a little bit, because in the back end of last season, Stevenson.
Sorry, it's happening on my end as well. It must be a Whiteley issue, so apologies if there's no one watching live. So apologies if you listen to this back for some of the video issues. We're back. It's definitely a Whiteley issue, Chris, because whatever's happening to you is happening to me as well. So it's okay. We'll go on.
We'll forge on somehow.
Exactly. We got most of your analysis there, so it's fine. We'll go on to the transactions next then. So. So we had our first trade of the season this week, and it did involve my team, of course it did, and Ross's team. So Ross sent Javonte Williams, who obviously injured for the year, but Keeley $20 FAB to Gridiron Gang for Robert Woods. What do you make of this trade, Chris?
I see. It was an interesting trade, because in the end, I think we all kind of knew why there was FAB money on the table with this trade. We'll come to this in a bit, because there is one big transfer story of the week.
Yeah.
But I think it definitely gains a solid option for Ross. In a way that you couldn't have got off the waivers anyway.
Yeah.
And it benefited you in the long run as well. So yes, I think a reasonable trade for everybody. Obviously, Javonte got dropped as well. So yeah, I think that Ross does stand to gain from this. But it was clever GMing on your part, because I think that segues quite.
I think it is my software that's causing these issues, but again, we got all of your analysis there basically. So I'm just gonna get the video going again, and then I'm gonna leave it because it keeps freezing on my side for some reason. Completely. So, Ross's team quite banged up so far, as we already saw. Needed some depth players. Obviously, Robert Woods gives him some options on the bench there. And as you say, the next move that we see here, that $20. Now, originally, this $20 wasn't going to feature into my plans. I just thought, it's going to allow me to spend what I want to spend. And then, I don't have to worry for the rest of the season. But, so Gridiron Gang, my team added Kenneth Walker III for $113, which is, as was said on the group chat, a record bid. We have had some big ones, but that's obviously we've never had above the starting budget before. So, and that was dropping obviously Javonte Williams, who did isn't going to play for the rest of the season. So yeah, what do you make of that one then, Chris?
It's a huge amount of coin to spend on such a player. I expect to see some big bids for Kenneth Walker, because it's very rare at this time of the season for firstly to get any sort of starting player for a good sum of money, and secondly a starting running back that's going to be your RB1, or at least an RB1 in that offense. Might not be a fancy RB1, but someone who's going to be factors anyway to be part of a team. I did expect a high number. I didn't expect as high as that, I have to say. I think the other bids were in the ballpark region of bids that we'd seen in the past. I think we've seen 38, 35, 33, and 18.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, it's a big overspend. But this is what happens in blind auctions, is that if you really want a guy, you've got to go and sell the farm to go and buy him. And that's what you did. All I can say is that I hope it works out for you, because that is a significant investment in a guy who does have obviously immense talent, as we saw at the end of the game on Sunday. But he's quite clearly unproven, and in an offense that is quite boom and bust. So I want to see this work out. I hope that that's the 113 well spent. Obviously, you're now going to be out of waiver points, give or take, for the rest of the season. But that's it. I think that in this time of the season, it's probably the time to spend them, because as time goes on, it's much easier, as we've seen in the past, to pick up guys for 1 or 2 or even 3, and there's limited value in there.
Yeah, no, that's kind of where I got to with it. So just to walk it through. So I guess starting with the roster, my own roster position. Obviously, I've had some guys like Darren Waller, Terry McLaurin, who haven't quite been firing so far. Michael Thomas, who's been injured. And going back to even the starters, Joe Mixon obviously hasn't had a great start to the year either. So I was just looking to secure myself for the season. James Robinson had a great start. He's obviously had a rougher couple of weeks. So my thinking was, okay, well, I need to do something here to ensure I get another player. As you say, enter Kenneth Walker, who I wouldn't necessarily say the Seahawks are a boom bust offense. They've actually been a pretty good offense so far against complete expectation. They have. Gino's been playing at literally an elite level, and they've actually scored quite a lot of points sneakily under the radar, other than the Niners game, but the Niners are a great defense. They've done really quite well. Obviously, like you said, Rashad Penny himself didn't necessarily turn up with good fantasy points, but then, as you say, enter Kenneth Walker, who steps into Penny's role, and he doesn't have a guy nipping at the heels like Penny did it with Walker himself. He's also a rookie, which, as we know, rookie running backs or younger running backs typically can do better. He's got good pedigree. His second-round draft pick was quite highly rated, so you've got all that. As you say, I still completely agree. It's not absolutely a nailed-on addition, but you kind of hit on it. We're entering week 6 now, midpoint of the season. Few players come along like this. I'd missed on a couple of guys earlier because I didn't bid quite as much, which like Garrett Wilson and Romeo Dobbs, who haven't turned out to obviously be the real deal. So I had some money to spend, and then, as you kind of say, it was just a case of, well, I want to make sure I get this guy. So I literally just scanned down the league and saw what money everybody had left. After that trade with Ross, I could literally outbid anyone except Viv, who had 119. So I just thought, you know what, if I miss out on a guy again, which I did with Wilson and Dobbs, just because I hedged my bid back a bit, I'm going to be really pissed off this time, because like you say, this has the potential to be a game changer. So yes, a massive bid. And just going back to what you kind of said, the winning bid would have been $39 essentially, because Bedennet's bid 38, you bid 35, Dave Henderson bid 33, and then your gold bid 10. So you're right, and as you say, in the blind auction it does show it was an overbid, but ultimately it's fake money. As you say, we can still have players. We have the top-up system, of which I'm actually still in a position to receive additional money as of the standings right now. And as you say, you never know what's going to happen in future weeks. So that, and then any other trades that could happen, who knows? I might pick up some more waiver budget as and when we go as well. So that is the whole reasoning behind it. So, but definitely eye-watering out of money on one hit. We had another couple of moves from Bedetonators that I just pulled out as noteworthy. Speaking of the Seahawks, they added Geno Smith for $5, dropping Hunter Renfrow, and they also added sort of a quarterback in Taysom Hill for $6, dropping Donnell Mooney. What do you make of those two moves for Ollie?
Well, I think that Gino, he's definitely playing at a high level. I just don't know if the bubble's going to burst at some point. I just don't know. Granted, he's done very well and above all expectations, and Ollie's playing him over Russell Wilson this week, which I think is fair. He's in much better form, and say fantasy-wise, apart from one dud week in week 2, he's been absolutely superb. But yeah, let's see. You always run the gauntlet with a guy like that. As for Taysom Hill, on the other hand, with all the uncertainty around Jameis and that, he does come in for all sorts. Passing downs, he can be a running back, he can be all sorts. So yeah, I think this is a very intriguing option, especially he's in the game as a tight end as well. So. I like it. I like the pickup. I like the bold play. I like the fact that he's trying something different. But there's always a possibility that these guys don't do anything, especially Taysom Hill. Gino, on the other hand, I got a bit more warmth about him now, especially you see how he's playing. But I still think the Seahawks are volatile.
Yeah. I agree. It still feels weird believing in a Geno Smith-led offense, but yeah, they have been good so far. So who knows? On to the standing stats and milestones then. So we'll start with the milestones just because I've got it up in now. So Coach Nunn got his 60th career win. What a way to do it with that weekly outing. So congrats to Ross. Coach Henderson got his 10th regular season loss, and Coach Gardner-Beddoes got his 50th regular season loss. So there you go for the milestones. Looking at the standings then, so if we start off with the Southampton division, a very hotly contested division this year, with Ixan leading it up at 5-0. Then we have bucking the trend at 4-1, and then Ben Necessities at 3-2, and the Boltons at 2-3. So all stepped by a win apiece there. Obviously, my dad's team is the highest scoring team at the moment. Through the start of the season. Then we have the Portsmouth division. You are at the top of that, Chris, with 4-1. And then myself and Ollie at 3-2, right behind you with the Dream Team adrift there at 1-4. And then finally in the Winchester division, it's still all to play for, and Tom is definitely not out of the race here with an 0-5 record, because Pakistan UR Gold lead up this division with a 2-3 record at the moment, with Perfect Dak Ross's new team at 1-4. So put all that together, the overall, so obviously as it stands today, Ixan Forge Flyers and Pakistan make the playoffs, with bucking the trend as the wild card. Traditional wildcard that is, and Ben Necessities making it by way of most points forward. Looking at the breakdown, my dad's team are understandably at the top with all of those points he scored so far. My team right behind, although I say right behind, about 6 points adrift. 6 wins adrift. Then it's kind of obviously all the way the middle ground until you get nearer the bottom, and you see UR Gold, who despite being tied lead for their division, have a 12-43 record so far in the breakdown, which is the same as Tom's Tyrants, who are 0-5, so a little bit of injustice there. Looking at the coach ranking, what surprised my dad's team once again at the top. Is a top heavy roster though, but then is there right behind, who's obviously had the slow start, but have picked up of late Forge Flyers. Chris, you're doing a good job of coach points so far this season, rounding out the top 3. Then there's a bit of a drop off to the middle ground, then you get to the bottom. Tom's Tyrants, a whopping 1-2-3 points on the bench so far this year, so that 0-5 record, definitely not all on Tom, but obviously there is quite a bit of points left on there as well. And then Gridiron Gang, some of mine inflated a bit by some other things going on, but I'm in the second bottom position there with Pat there right above me as well. So that is all the stats. Looking at points forward again and stuff actually, so my team and my dad's team are the only two teams over 500 at the moment, but there are a few teams in the 400s. In terms of points against, there have been some teams that have been absolutely scored on. It's fairly close at the top, but Ross's team 531, Viv's team 542, and Dave Henderson's teams all at 523, so they've had a tough going with it so far. And you, Chris, have had the easiest run in. Nobody has conceded less points than you. In fact, you were the only team below 415, I think is the next lowest. You have 355. So
what can I say? People are just quaking their boots. Clearly.
Exactly, it's the fear factor, as Nige used to say. Moving on to the trade block section. So only my players on there at the moment. So if you would like to inquire at least one of Melvin Gordon, James Robinson, Terry McLaurin, Michael Thomas, or Darren Waller, let me know and we can discuss something. Check out the power rankings when they land. Tom's been getting those up reliably on a Sunday. So look out for those when they drop. We'll go on to Debate Corner. So let me just see where John has got to. Where are you, John?
Order.
Yep, he's ordering that champagne because Kwasi Kwarteng has obviously been given the boot, so he's quite happy today, John.
So, I mean, for those outside the UK, I mean, today's been a bit of a weird one. That's it. I think that they said the government's about to fall again. It's going to be a bit weird. Things are going to be a bit strange. Think about it this way. This is the analogy. If your boss told you to do something and you did it, and then you did it well, exactly as they said they were going to do, and then you got fired for it, you'd be a little bit pissed off, wouldn't you? Well, you think the boss has got to go because it's their idea. Well, that's kind of where this trust is right now. Her credibility shot, everybody.
Yeah.
That's it, well.
Yeah. As much as I agree with that, it is also, I'm sure you've seen as well, Mr. Kwarteng, after delivering said mini budget, which led to a crash of the pound, then went to a celebratory drinks dinner party with lots of his former colleagues at hedge fund companies and things who just happened to short the pound and make a fuck ton of money from it. So while I agree, definitely wasn't all on him, there's also a bit of a smoking gun element there, I think, as well.
Yes, there's lots of dodginess. I have to say, though, that 2022 has been a turbulent year for a variety of reasons, but it's time to have a clean slate. That's it. New monarch, new government.
Yeah.
Let's just go for it. Let's just do the whole thing in 1 year.
Makes sense.
Take all the pain.
Yeah.
And then build. It's an interesting yet bittersweet time to be British. Let's be honest.
Yeah, very true. And so Debate Corner actually featured actual debate about things this week, but we do have a other thing to discuss for Debate Corner, and that is we only have two teams with a 0 in the column right now after Ross got his win last week. That is Ixan at 5-0 and Tom Sarrant at 0-5. The Debate Corner question this week is, which of these teams loses their 0 first? So will Ixan lose first, or will Tom's Tyrants win first?
Does this segue into the next section?
Well, it didn't, but I suppose it could. So, I mean, I was just going to bring up the schedule for both teams. But if we're looking at this week, which we'll obviously get onto very soon, Tom plays myself, Gridiron Gang, and Ben plays You Are Gold. And then just looking for the next few games, just to give you a bit more context around the Debate Corner, Chris, if I can find the team names here. Yep. So Ixan, next few weeks they play You Are Gold. Tom's Tyrants as well, so and I'm controlling my own fate there, and then Ben Acestes after that. Meanwhile, Tom's Tyrants play so myself next week, Ben the week after, and then Ross's team in week 8.
Well, we're going to know next week. This will be a wonderful question a week later, I have to say. Because, the marquee matchup is I think it's probably going to be Tom, to be honest. It's probably going to be who loses it first. It's going to be Tom. It's going to be difficult for Tom to win this week and next. I think it's going to be easy for Ben to win this week and next. So let's have a look at week 8, and then we should probably see. So if we're going with week 8, where Ben's playing Ben Acestes, difficult game, and Tom's playing Ross. I mean, it could be the same week, mate.
It could, it could. I'm gonna be an optimist and say that Tom gets his first win before Ben drops one. But notably, Ben isn't off to the best of starts this week, despite playing You Are Gold, you never know. Weird things happen in fantasy. So, but it could be the same because Tom could beat me this week. Who knows? So, I have another fun debate corner lined up, but that one's probably going to hit next week because I thought I'd do that one first. So that is debate corner for this week. We want to go on to the week 6 previews. This week we go back out of the divisions, or we are out of the divisions again, I should say. So Gridiron Gang faces Tom's Tyrants. And you'll have noticed, you won't know, Chris, probably because you haven't seen it, but the episode is called Founding Fathers. We have 3 Founding Bowl games this week between Gridiron Gang, Tom's Torrents, Forge Flies and Bare Necessities, and Bird Detonators and Perfect Dak, which is Ross's team. And then we also have the Dream Team against Napolitans, Your Gold against Ixan, and Pedestal against Bucking the Trend. Have you got any lean of where you want to go with the marquee matchup this week, Chris?
I think that we've got to go for history here, Nathan. I think it's going to be Gridiron Gang versus Tom's Tyrants.
Well, there you go. So here we go then. The marquee matchup for week 6 of the 2022 LOC season. It is Gridiron Gang against Tom's Tyrants. Gridiron Gang takes on Tom's Tyrants in Week 6 of the 2022 LOC season. It is a Founding Bowl. It is a rematch of Corona Bowl 3. And it features a winless Tom's Tyrants who are 0-5 looking for their first win. Meanwhile, Gridiron Gang 3-2 looking to keep up in the division and the playoff race. The win is projected to go with Gridiron Gang at a rate of 98-89. So let's take a look at the lineups. In terms of Gridiron Gang's lineup, Alan Lazard comes into the lineup for Terry McLaurin. And Kenneth Walker comes into the lineup over James Robinson. So Gridiron Gang rolling out the 31 personnel this week, 3 running backs, 1 wide receiver and a tight end. On the other side of the board for Tom's Tyrants, let's see, Jonathan Taylor comes into the lineup here for Drake London. I think that's probably the only change on the team, so they are going with Wishbone, 3 running backs, 30 personnel, 2 wide receivers. The history of this matchup all time, Gridiron Gang are 7-8 all time against Tom's Tyrants. Chris, take it away.
Woo! Well, this is a marquee matchup for reasons aside from history. History's great, but it's matchup heaven galore across the board. We love this kind of thing. This is great. Now, last time we saw that KC and Buffalo face off against each other, I actually won 90 quid on the bet.
Nice.
Because it was good. That's it. Because I said that they would score 2 touchdowns in each half, both teams, and it was electric. It was a great game. Absolutely loved it. Money was well spent. But there was a bit of a points fest. And Alan and Kelsey are going to feast again in this. You can't say they're not. It's going to be great. Away at Arrowhead. I mean, yeah, games in the NFL these days don't get much bigger than that. Let's be frank.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting a real mountain of points and a mountain of offense. Lazard against the Jets at home. Love, love, love. Gordon against the Chargers. Chargers suck against the run. We saw that last week. Provided Gordon plays, and Gordon plays well.
He's got neck and rib injuries, but I don't think it's anything that's going to keep him out of the game, though. And it's a revenge game, let's not forget. That
is true. So, I mean, the way that the Chargers D's playing against the run at the moment, Gordon could be on one leg and he's probably still score a touchdown. It's a mixing against New Orleans today. Again, tough, but he's going to get lots and lots of volume. Kenneth Walker, as he's got into the team as the RB1, unquestioned. And the Eagles D versus Dallas. Let's be honest, Dallas have been all right offensively. They function, but they're still playing Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush is still the second-string QB. He only threw for 100 yards this last week. The Eagles D are legit. I think they're going to be doing all right this week. It could be a bit of a defest, though, in what is obviously a grudge game. Yeah. On the other side, I mean, again, there are some things I really love. Brady and Evans stack, love it. Versus Pittsburgh, love it.
Yeah.
Marquise Brown, with all of his volume against Seattle, he can't stop anybody. Should feast there. Miles Sanders doing Miles Sanders stuff, but again, when you've got a legit offense, I know the Dallas D is difficult, but you know it's a big game in prime time. It's those kind of things. He can just be, as long as he rolls into the end zone for a touchdown, he's going to be viable. As J.K. Dobbins is the same against the Giants. I know the Giants have been much improved, but they can still be scored points against. And whenever you're in a Baltimore offense that includes Lamar Jackson, then you've always got a chance of being a decent player. But Jonathan Taylor at the bottom there, he's in, he's back potentially. Although he's limited is better than nothing. Playing at home against the Jags, they have to win. That's it, to kind of propel their season on. He's the springboard. He's easily the best player in that offense. They're going to use lots of him if he's fit and available. I know the Jags, again, have been much improved on both sides of the ball, but Jonathan Taylor's the man. The Bengals versus New Orleans, no matter who they have in quarterback, they don't have anyone at receiver. And yeah, I defensively, I like it. So look, this is challenging, but do I think that your engine room, and which we're going to call the three running back, is better than the other opposing engine room? I do on this occasion. I do. Even though Jonathan Taylor's in there and he's limited, I do. But this isn't where the points are going to be scored. It's at the top. It's where it's Allen and Kelsey versus Brady and Evans, and man, you can't go past those two guys at the moment. That's Allen and Kelsey. So look, I'm really excited as to how this is going to play out. I think that the projections are going to be much higher than the actual projections on here. But I do think it's going to be your team that gets across the line this week, Nate. Tom's going to have hopefully a much improved week, but he's just going to come across the wrong team at the wrong time on the other side. But yeah, it's going to be hopefully something that makes up for the marquee matchup.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I'm going to go with my team as well. I completely agree with your comments on Tom. I think this is the week where Tom's team fully turns up and has a good day. Like you said, I think it's just my team at the moment profiles to have a great day. I think if anything could let it down, it is the engine room, like you said. Potentially, as you say, Melvin Gordon. He's not the unquestioned leader there, but he's the lead back, and what profile should be a good matchup. But Garrett Bowles went down injured last week, and we know they're still having offensive issues, so you never know. Mixon hasn't quite fired so far, but as you say, volume is keeping him afloat at the moment. And then Walker's a bit of a wild card, but profiles to be a good option. And then I think I'm only playing my set and forget defense for the second time so far this season. It might even be the first in the Eagles, but hopefully they'll deliver for me as well. On the other side, yeah, Jonathan Taylor coming back is huge for Tom, and he's got, as you say, some really nice matchups this week. Hollywood Brown's been solid all season long as well, so it should be an entertaining game. But yeah, I think I'm going to keep the confidence in my team and go with my team as well. Injury-wise, as I mentioned, Gordon's got rib and a neck injury supposedly, but he should be good to go. Darren Waller's on a bye, but he had a hamstring injury in the game last week. Michael Thomas hadn't practiced as of the last couple of days with a toe injury that's kept him out for quite a few weeks, so I'd imagine he won't play in this one. And on Tom's side, Raheem Mostert, I think it was just a rest day for him on Wednesday. They put it down as a knee, and then, yeah, as you said, for Tom, Jonathan Taylor should be back from his ankle injury, so that's it. Injury-wise, and could we just say from Brian Robinson, 12 points returning from not a massive day, but good to see the dude getting some points, and then a wise last-minute bench by me, swapping out McLaurin, hopefully anyway, for Lazard. So
that's it. Well, he definitely dodged the bullet there, which Brian Robinson didn't, by the way.
Well, hey, that'll take us nicely into our next game then, which is another Founding Bowl, Forge Flyers against Bare Necessities. Forge Flyers take a part in the second Founding Bowl of Week 6 in the 2022 LOC season, and it features two of the hottest teams so far, with Chris being 4-1 and Bare Necessities being the highest scoring team and also having a 3-2 record. They are projected to win this one 98-89. So if we take a look down the lineups for Bare Necessities at the moment, I think Devin Singletary is the only change coming in for Damian Pierce, who is on a bye. So Bare Necessities still going with the 30 personnel, Wishbone, 3 running backs, 2 receivers. On the other side of the board for Forge Flyers, Zach Ertz comes into the lineup for Kareem Hunt, and that is the only change for you. So you are going with 21 personnel this week, 2 running backs, a tight end, and 2 receivers. The history of this matchup all time, Bare Necessities are 7-11 against Forge Flyers. So how do you see the next Founding Bowl going, Chris?
Well, I think that, again, it's going to be a bit of a QB fest because we've got Kyler in. What is a plus matchup? Yes, it's away at Seattle, but Seattle can't stop anyone at the moment. Whilst you've got Lamar on the other side again, away at the Giants are buoyant, but we saw him have a bit of a down week last week, but I don't think that's going to last for long. I think he's going to be back to his usual ways. So, yeah, the battle of the mobile QBs. I think Lamar's a better QB mind, and he's definitely in a better place this year. So, yeah, I want this to go off for Kyler, because Kyler hasn't really had a game where he's gone absolute stratospheric this year. Mm-hmm. But this could be the game. And that's why Zach Ertz is in there as well, because Seattle don't really stop very much. And according to the metrics, they're the worst defense against tight ends. So,
makes sense to me.
For a couple of weeks, so he could be a viable red zone target. So hopefully he can bring his inner Kelsey up 25 yards for some touchdowns. We shall see. What I am slightly concerned about, though, from my side is offensive struggles. We've seen Russell Wilson struggle. Chargers have reasonably good defense still, although they're not very good against the run. They've still got elements. They don't have to be that good against them this year because offensively, Denver haven't been great. And Waddle with his third QB of the year. That's it. Who knows how that's going to turn out? But yeah, Kamara and Chubb once again back in their in the pilot seat for their RB1 starring roles, albeit into reasonably tough matchups against the run. And the Broncos D again playing in LA against Justin Herbert and the guys. They've been good so far, but I'm not sure this is going to be the week for them. Maybe. What's on the other side? If Godwin plays, I like it a lot. I see if AJ Brown plays, which he's going to, obviously, it's going to go off in that game. There's no doubt about that. It's going to be. We like a grudge match. We like playing at home. We like playing against Dallas. Their defenses are legit, but AJ Brown's been legit through the game so far. And then Fournette, Eckler, and Singletary. Well, Singletary's playing in that crazy game. Now it's whether or not that they just pass it all the time and then just avoid using the run. But that's it again. You'd like to fashion some offense in that. I think that there's going to be plenty of pickings. Eckler against we know that Denver D's stout, but again he's coming off his best game of the year so far. And Fournette, Fournette is just going to barrel over some of those dudes in the Pittsburgh defense. So yeah, see him coming. 49ers against Atlanta's lovely as well. So look, I think that there's sometimes you just got to know when the team's good. Dave's rolling. There's points galore. He's been in treble figures 3 weeks in a row, I think. So I can't look past him. I think my team's got a chance, but just not nearly as good a chance as his. So I'm going with their necessities in this game. They're in good form. They've got guys in good form. They've got guys in good matchups. What more could you want?
See, I'm actually going to go with your team this week, Chris. I'll start with my dad's team. The Giants, for somehow, some way, have actually been a good football team so far. They are playing at home, so can they limit Lamar Jackson a bit? I think they can, because we've seen Lamar Jackson not have a great game every game so far this year, so there's definitely potential there for that. Chris Godwin's obviously still working his way. He's still a bit dinged up. I think Mike Evans has been kind of the top target there so far as well. He could still have a good day. As you say, it's a paper-thin secondary for Pittsburgh. A.J. Brown's going to be locked up with Trayvon Diggs, which is not always necessarily a bad thing, but the Dallas D has been pretty good so far. And then Fournette and Eckler, they've had their downtimes as well. Fournette's got an okay matchup, will be involved, but Eckler, it's a bit of a tougher matchup against Denver. And then Singletary, again, he's one of those guys, it's kind of hard to figure out how good and how much work he's going to get each week. And then the Niners D, they're a little banged up as well, playing on the West Coast again, though they didn't go, the East Coast, they didn't go back to the West Coast after their game against Carolina. So, I don't know, I just see a bit of risk in Ben Assist's team, whereas for your team, I think you're right on Kyler Murray. This should be the first proper boom game he has this game. Sutton's been solid all year long. Waddle, yeah, that's the worry for you. What's he going to do with, was it Skylar Thompson, whatever his name is, but at least he's been taking all the reps this week instead of just being inserted into a game unprepared. As you say, could be the great beneficiary of Kyler, and then Kamara and Chubb are going to be absolutely solid for you. So yeah, I'm going with your team this week here for this one. Injury wise, so Godwin, yeah, he's a bit dinged up. I think it's hip, is it, or knee, or he's had a few ailments so far, but he should be good to go. And then elsewhere, I don't think there's any other injuries. I think Dawson Knox should be coming back for Ben Assistis as well. We go on to our next game then. It is the Dream Team against Neapolitans. The Dream Team takes on Neapolitans. Both these teams have had their struggles so far, as shown by the records. Dream Team 1-4 with a 3-game losing streak, and Neapolitans 2-3 with a 2-game losing streak. One must win, and the projections say that one will be Neapolitans, 85 282. Looking down the lineups for Neapolitans, Isaiah McKenzie comes into the starting lineup in favour of T. Higgins, for now anyway at least. So they are going with 20 personnel this week, 2 running backs and 3 wide receivers. For the Dream Team, they are unchanged at the moment, so they're still going with the 5 wide all receiver setup. History of this matchup all time, the Dream Team are 2-0 against Neapolitans. So it is a battle of 2 struggling teams. Chris, which struggler will come out on top in this one?
Well, that's the thing, is that they're just trying to find some form at the moment. And yeah, it's a challenging one, because you look at Neapolitans, and they're rolling out some guys. Yes, Isaiah McKenzie's being rolled out this week. But I think at the right time, you think that's the kind of matchup that you would expect. That he would be most used, in that kind of game with you think plenty of offense. But here's why I'm struggling to like it. Again, Hill with his third string quarterback, Kirk against the reasonably stout Colts offense that we've seen really grind offenses to a halt in the last few games, even if they haven't played well themselves. Stevenson against Cleveland. If you realise that he's going to be the only real viable option to get the ball rolling, are they just going to stack up the box? And Najee Harris playing Tampa, and I just don't like that. Plus the Dolphins play Minnesota, and they're going to be on the back foot. There's going to be a lot of defense in that game for them. They're going to feel a lot. So the only thing that you're really hanging your hat on then is Jalen Hurts against Dallas, and we've seen how good the Dallas D is, especially getting to the QB. I know he can run around a lot. And I know that the Philly O-line is legit, but Jones got to do something in this game. And I think running around and using his legs may well be cut off to him as an option. Whilst on the other side, you've got arguably 3 number 1 receivers, 4 if you include DJ Moore, but I hate the matchup. And Jerry Jeudy is the kind of number 2 there. So this is going to be a real boom or bust game. The Bills D against KC, just not the week to play those guys. Joe Burrow against New Orleans, in a way, it's difficult. I mean, obviously Joe Burrow is used to the state of Louisiana, but yeah, again, Chase against Lattimore with Burrow in coverage. So this game to me screams of a low-scoring, gritty game. And with potentially some guys who are all playing reasonably legit defenses in difficult positions, who could be limited. So, who do I like the most? If I'm gonna pick a team, I like Viv's team the best. But yeah, this really is an absolute crapshoot, Dave.
Yeah, no, I agree. A part of me actually wanted to lock up Dave's team here because nothing to do with the game itself, but if you track through the milestone signing stats each week, I have pointed out that Dave is always around 500. He either is, he falls behind, then he creeps back up again. His career wins and losses, he's currently at 9-11, so he's a little behind. In regular season, he's 9-10. So by that logic, he's due a win. But when I looked down his team, I could not, in good conscience, do a lock on it because outside of Jalen Hurts playing Dallas, which Dallas D has been pretty good so far, so it isn't necessarily the easiest matchup. Hill playing with a third-string quarterback. Christian Kirk playing on a Jackson has obviously been a bit rough so far. Isaiah McKenzie being, he is an option in that Bills passing offense and could certainly have a good day, but he's not a focus point. Ramondre Stevenson's obviously a clear highlight, but then you've got Najee Harris who hasn't been good so far, losing volume against what's a pretty good Tampa run D, and for some reason still rolling out the Dolphins D. Don't quite understand that one either. Whereas this team, I agree, it's not going to be a pretty game, this one. I don't think this would surprise anyone if it's like a 80-70 something victory or something of that fashion, because Burrow and Chase are playing a good New Orleans defense. Neither have been fully clicking so far. Diggs, you got to say, should do well. Williams, the Denver defense has been fairly good so far as well. DJ Moore's going to get Jalen Ramsey, you'd think, certainly playing in the slot. Jerry Jeudy's obviously not been a beneficiary of the Broncos offense so far, so it's pretty gross on both sides. I'm not going to lock anything in this game. It's just got bad idea written all over it. And kind of like you, Chris, I don't really want to pick anything, but for nothing else other than the win-loss records that Dave seems to gravitate to 500, I will just lean with his team in the pick'em. So Chris goes for Viv, and I go for Dave. So there we go. Injury-wise for these two, so I think it's a clean bill of health in the starting lineup. On the bench, Matson's questionable, but I think he will play. I don't think that's anything serious. T. Higgins, he's obviously still dealing with, I think, is it a knee or ankle issue for him? Ankle. He did have a limited practice today, but he kind of did the same last week and obviously wasn't really playing much, so one to watch. And Kyle Pitts should return from a hamstring injury that kept him out the game last week as well. On to the next game then. It is You Are Gold against Ixan, and we all know what that one is, but I'll announce it after the music. We have the first acronym bowl of 2022 in week 6 of the LOC season with You Are Gold, URG against Ixan, which is obviously, I know, something about NFL. And the projections in this one do have it going in favour of Ixan, 90 to 85. Ixan is obviously 5-0, while You Are Gold 2-3, so that does make sense. Looking down the lineup for Ixan, Antonio Gibson returns to the lineup but only scores for 5 points on Thursday Night Football. Meanwhile, Tyler Lockett comes into the lineup in favour of James Conner, so Ixan is rolling out the 20 personnel, 2 running backs and 3 wide receivers. On the other side of the board for You Are Gold, let's see here, so I'm not sure if I think Tyler Boyd comes into the lineup for Brandon Cooks, who is on a bye, and I think that is the only change. So You Are Gold going with 21 personnel this week, 2 running backs, a tight end and 2 receivers. And the history of this matchup all time, Ixan are 5-3 against You Are Gold. So Chris, will Ixan extend the winning streak to 6 and stay undefeated?
Yes. Yes. I think this is my lock for the week. This is as one sided as it gets. I think. Look, Mahomes, Debo, good matchup. Lockett, McCaffrey is going to be the guy who's going to be leaned on. I know the Giants have looked better, but the Ravens are going to go after Daniel Jones. Look, and there's so much to like about Ben's team. And I talked about it on the pod about why I like his team, why they're so difficult to beat. It's because he's got guys, volume guys that are in offenses. We talked earlier on about this, and I just think that he's got some guys that are just just matchup proof. Mm-hmm. You look at Mahomes, he's matchup proof. Debo on his day is matchup proof. I think McCaffrey, with the amount of volume that he gets, is such as well. And obviously, Ben's MVP for many years, Justin Tucker, who is, of course, the number 1 kicker in fantasy football, in real life football. He's just a man. And 5 points from Antonio Gibson so far. I mean, 5 points might be what OGB's looking for, really, because there could be some really ugly scores here. Matt Stafford against Carolina's reasonably legit defense. Tyler Boyd against New Orleans. I mean, there's a lot of Pittman against the Jags. I mean, fair enough, that might be okay. Let's see, Cook against Miami, that also will probably be okay, and Aaron Jones against the Jets will get them going. But do I really hang my hat on any of those? Feeling good about any of that? Not really. Do I think that Patrick Mahomes will probably outscore 3 of his skill players?
Including Matt Stafford.
Including Matt Stafford. Yes, that's it. So
Carolina's defense hasn't been a slouch so far. That's actually been the one bright spot for them. So.
Exactly. That's what's keeping them in games. So yeah, I just don't see it, man. I don't see any way that OGB can get those guys to function. Even if Cook and Jones are in plus matchups, the other side has just been too good. And will continue to be so. Yeah,
I think this would have traditionally been a good week for Ollie to catch Ben's team, with him being a bit banged up, as I'll do with the injury roundup in a second. But You locked Ben last week and missed. You're going back to the well. I'm going to join you in said well this week, and I'm going to lock Ben up as well. It just about passes the mirror test because there are some chinks in Ixan's armor showing. But I think there's just going to be too much quality there, like you say, and your Gold's just not in a good place at the moment, and a team that needs a quarterback to perform, and Matt Stafford has not done that thus far. The Rams' offense has been, I don't even think it's sneaky bad at this point. It's just been bad outside of Cooper Kupp. So injury-wise, Tyler Lockett did have a limited session yesterday, which was a downgrade, noted with a hamstring. Unclear how significant that is, but obviously definitely one to watch for Ixan. For a guy that's obviously historically had soft tissue injuries. James Conner, I think he's suffering with an ankle injury as well. I think by the sounds of it, unlikely for him to play this weekend. Ribs, sorry. Mike Boone's questionable. I think, again, he randomly popped up on the injury report. Damian Harris won't play with the hamstring. Jacoby Myers should play with the knee that he's been dealing with a few weeks. Rashad Bateman's got a foot injury and probably won't play for your Gold. So that's the injury wrap-up for these two. So we'll move on to our penultimate game then, which sees Pakistan face off against Bucking the Trend. Bucking the Trend faces Pakistan here in week 6. Bucking the Trend at 4-1, looking to keep up in the uber competitive Southampton division, but they've only got 4 points from Thursday Night Football, which was courtesy of their quarterback, which isn't a great start, leading to a very low projection of 68 versus Pakistan's 92. Palace 2-3 so far. Looking down the lineups, let's go back to Bucking the Trend. As I say, Carson Wentz only got the 4 points on Thursday Night Football. Lineup wise, let's see here. I can't exactly remember who he played. So Josh Jacobs definitely hits the bench as he's on a bye. And I think it's probably Deontay Johnson coming in. I think that is the only change. So Mike is going with 20 personnel this week, 2 running backs and 3 wide receivers. On the other side of the board for Pakistan, I think Ina Benjamin comes into the lineup in favour of Devontae Adams, who is on a bye, and I think that is the only change for Pat as well. So Pat also going with 20 personnel this week, 2 running backs and 3 wide receivers. The history of this matchup all time, Bucking the Trend are 1-3 against Pakistan. Has Carson Wentz killed Mike before the week has even really begun, Chris?
I do think that might be the case, and even then it would have been quite a challenging week anyway, bearing in mind some of the guys, skill position-wise anyway, who they're up against. I mean, you look at that, Gallup against the Philly D, Barkley against Baltimore, Johnson against the Tampa D, and Clyde against Buffalo's D. Yeah, all right, fine. There might be some offense there for KC, but it's got to be through the air. Isn't it? I know Clyde's been really good recently, but just they haven't come across a defense like that. And Buffalo are looking pretty good. The Bucs D playing Pittsburgh, and Kenny Pickett's good for about 3 picks a game, but he's going to get sacked a couple of times. But that's about it. And that unfortunately is where Mike is at. 4 points for a QB. What can you say? It just doesn't do you any favours at all. You've got to hope someone puts up QB numbers.
Yeah, I really do. And Mike does pay attention. We know he pays attention to the fantasy, and I think he's a good coach as far as the LOC goes. And I know it's hard out there streaming quarterbacks, because myself and him went through the exact same thing last year, but everything screamed, do not play Carson Wentz this week. To Mike's credit, I think that was worse than any one of us would have possibly imagined. But he was entering this game with supposedly 2 strained bicep tendons or something, and injured ankle as well, for a team that's obviously not been clicking so far, and in a game that they could, we know Ron Rivera wants to run the ball, but they've just not had been in the position to do so far. This was a game where they could do that, and that's exactly what they did. I think it's a really bad decision by Mike, unfortunately, to stay with Carson Wentz here.
Yeah, there was a conversation midweek about this, and it was, should I pick up Jimmy G?
Yeah, when those are your choices, I agree. It's definitely not easy for Mike. I think I might have gone with Jimmy G, to be honest.
I would have gone with Jimmy G, I think, in this. I said, when you've got the likes of, you've got Jones, Mariota, Brissett, Trevor Lawrence, they're all in garbage matchups. It's difficult to know, but I think in hindsight it's very easy to say, let's play Jimmy G. But, it is what it is. So I think this is a bit of a scratch game for him, because you look at that. Pat's pretty much full strength still. Yeah. He came off a loss last week, but he still put up reasonable points. He still has his main components of the team. We're talking Herbert, Jefferson, Zeke's still there. Benjamin could be a factor this week, especially against Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a bit of a goal line vulture, and obviously the Packers are playing the Jets as well on defense. So especially we talked earlier on about AJ Brown being covered. Devontae Smith potentially,
I completely agree.
has the capacity to be able to benefit from that. So there's so much to like about Pat's team. Absolutely going for it for Pat. I think it's going to be a good bounce back week for him. Let's give it scratch it off and build again next week.
Yeah, no, I'm going with Pat's team here as well. I just think, the quarterback, poor performance, and I don't think there's going to be enough there to overcome that. So Pat just needs to have a decent week, which I think he certainly can do to win this one. So I'm going with you on that one. So we'll go to our last game of the week then. We finish off with a Founding Bowl. It's Bedednators against Perfect Dak. Bedednators take on Perfect Dak here in week 3. Bedednators rolling in with a 3-game win streak after starting with 0-2. Ross knows all too well what starting with losses look like, as he only picked up his first last week after starting 0-4, currently sitting at 1-4. He is projected to win this one though, 92 to 79. Let's take a look down the lineups. There is a bit of a reason why, which you will see in a second. So for Perfect Dak, let's see, in terms of lineup, I think they're going with the exact same lineup they had last week. Just checking down here, yeah, they are. So they're fielding the 11 personnel, 1 running back, a tight end, and 3 wide receivers. On the other side of the board for the Bedednators, Geno Smith comes into the lineup in favour of Russell Wilson. And then skill position-wise, I think Travis Etienne comes in for Derrick Henry. And I think it is unchanged at the moment, yep. But Daniel Carson is on a bye, his kicker, so that's the reason why the projections are a bit far apart there. The history of this matchup all time, Bedednators are 5-7 against Ross's team. And just before you take the preview away in this one, Chris, I did forget to do the injuries for Pat and Bucking the Trend, so I'll just dovetail back and do that. Barkley's obviously dealing with a shoulder injury, but he'll play. Deontay Johnson has injury as well. I can't remember what it is, but he'll play. Keenan Allen could make his return this week from his hamstring injury. Obviously, DeAndre Swift's been dealing with his litany of injuries, but he's on a bye anyway. Two has already been ruled out, obviously, with that concussion, and a full bit of health for Pakistan. So, yeah, take it away on Bedednators versus Perfect Dak, Chris.
Yeah, I think that again the projections without the kicker would be about the same. I think because we saw last week that Ollie's team obviously scored a very, very high amount of points. He's got teams that are rolling with the run. So San Francisco, the Jets, and the Jags have all rolled with the run so far. I think Travis Etienne is definitely an ascending player in that offense.
Yep.
Breece Hall's has ascended, and Jeff Wilson's definitely the number one guy. If Olave is able to play, he will be the clear-cut number one in that offense. Fair enough. Who knows who might be throwing to him? But actually, if it's only goal, it's not so bad. If it's Jameis, it's even better. And if it's Taysom Hill, then who knows?
And Ollie's got Taysom Hill as well, just to cover all bases, even if Olave doesn't play.
Indeed. So he could put out the real strange one in there. I mean, if there's a week to roll out Juju, might be this week. It's you never know. That game could be completely wild. It could be some strange guys scoring points, especially if it's just throw. But Geno against Arizona. Now, he's playing at home. Arizona haven't been very good this year.
Mm-hmm.
They've been a bit of a team in flux. Geno last time he played at home. That's it. I'm just looking down the list here. Played Atlanta, decent points. Played Denver on the first day, decent points. So, obviously New Orleans' his defense last week didn't phase him. So they've been in real high-scoring games in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I should maybe next week I'll say I absolutely hate it, but this week I don't. And CeeDee Lamb is who knows what might come out of that. Cooper Rush isn't obviously throwing for that amount of yardage, but what he does throw, you'd think he's going to throw his way.
Yep.
But, yeah, that defense is great. And the Rams playing Carolina, well, what a week to roll those guys out. So on the other side, again, you're playing Kirk Cousins in the 6 o'clock game against Miami in Miami. Miami have not going to not look good. As we said earlier on, they're going to see a lot of defense there from the Dolphins. A lot of offense from Minnesota. Minnesota are good. They look legit again this year. Cup and Andrews, volume guys, but we talked about Matt Stafford's problems earlier on. Even though that he's been played at quarterback, Cup is the beneficiary in that offense. He is the alpha. There is no other receiver of any note. Allen Robinson's been phased out. Higbee's a guy who just gets dumped onto. So yeah, you expect points there. Mark Andrews against the Giants again. I think as a podcast, we are a Mark Andrews fan podcast.
Oh yeah.
That's it. The guy is everything you could possibly want. That's it. And he's going to be the same again. Metcalf, big play game, big play, big play game at home. It's got to be, especially if Lockett's a little bit banged up. And then Gabe Davis last week broke off from that crazy TD, which obviously was the backbone of his.
Well, he had two. He had that 98-yard one, then he had the ridiculous one-hand grab, which was also like a 60-yard touchdown or something stupid.
Yeah, 60. Yeah. So.
And also, correct me if I'm wrong. In that playoff game last year, did he score 4 touchdowns in that game against the Chiefs? I can't remember. Did he get all the touchdowns, or he certainly got at least 1 or 2?
He had a big day. So yeah, they're obviously looking for him in a bigger way than they have been in the last first 3 weeks of the season. First week did quite well. So yeah, and Patriots D against Cleveland, we saw it. They knocked a run first team down to score absolutely nothing last week. So yeah, it's the same game plan again, and we mustn't forget, Bill Belichick hates the Browns.
Yeah, so that's a revenge game. So there are a sneaky high amount of revenge games on the NFL docket this week for one
sure.
or another.
So yeah, I think this is going to be a really exciting game to watch. I like Ross's team. I hate to say I like Ross's team. I know the projections are good. Projections go his way. I think the quarterback and his receiving core are all playing in reasonably high-powered games this week. Ollie's team's much the same, but there's just some question marks over always over Gino maybe, and over the production of maybe his 2 receivers. So yeah, I'm feeling good for Ross again. Can't you believe it?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Ollie's team, but I like I said in the recap for Ross's team, I think his team looked worse than it actually was to start the season. Now that he's healthy, I think it's a solid team again. I don't think it's a great team. They obviously had a great performance last week. They're going to come down from that, but they could still have a pretty nice day. I just think Ollie's team has been one that's been steadily in the ascendancy. If Gino has a good day, I think that the route to victory here for Ollie's team is clear, certainly once he gets a kicker as well. Annoyingly for him, he's probably wishing Mayfield was playing, because PJ Walker might not be as turnover and point friendly, but it's still a good matchup, so I agree. For Ross's team, I mean, yeah, it's just, I'm not going to get too carried away with one good week yet versus Ollie's team, who's had quite a few nice weeks in a row, as evidenced by that 3-game win streak. And then just to round off, so in that playoff game against the Chiefs last year, Gabe Davis had 8 receptions on 10 targets for 201 yards and 4 touchdowns, so probably not going to do that again, but could have a good day all the same. So that brings us to the end of it. I will just cover off the injuries though. Cooper Kupp, I think he just had a rest day Wednesday. He's going to play. Chris Olave still in the concussion protocol, but by the sounds of it, he's making good progress, so could play on Sunday. Ollie's bench is all clear, I think. Ross's team, Dak Prescott, will miss this week, but should be back next week from that broken thumb. And then Dalton Schultz, I think he got a PCL sprain, so I think he might be a bit iffy for this one. And that's all the previews. If you are around this Sunday and would like to do so, please do come over and watch the games at mine, other than going to probably watch the West Ham game at Saints. In the afternoon, I'll be back, so you're welcome to join if you'd like to. Thank you for joining us, as always, Chris.
You're very welcome, Mr. It's great to be here.
And thank you for joining us, listeners. So we hope you have a good weekend. Good luck in your fantasy matchups, unless you're playing me, of course. Goodbye.